Initially, I wasn't going to record a video tonight, and I was probably just going to do a live stream tomorrow to go over some of this information and answer any questions that you guys might have about the data that I'm about to show you. But before I even do that, I wanted to get into a couple of things that I've noticed as I've gone through this. And one major issue, unrelated, well, loosely related to this issue that I think we might have as Republicans. So to start, I would like to show you what the Office of the Secretary of State has for the voter registration lookup, because I came across an issue with this. So let me just show you right here. So you can actually go pick your town. I live in Tolland, Anderson. And I'm doing this with you because when I turned 18, I registered as a Republican. When I just, filled out your registration card in general to say that you would be willing to be drafted. I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to get drafted. I'm not going to register to vote. Um, but so I registered back in 2006. So I'm not that old in comparison to a lot of the people that are in the right wing movement trying to push this through. But I am part of the millennial group, and I think we're probably one of the biggest groups that needs to be a part of this movement. And before I put in my birthday and show you guys what's going to come back, I want you to understand I have taken part in primaries for the Republicans because I have been a registered Republican. The only way you can vote in a primary is if you are affiliated with the party that is doing that primary. Since most people typically don't go and vote in the primary because for whatever reason, I mean, I think it's like voter fatigue. Like you don't want to go in August and then go again in November. For whatever reason, there's just not a whole hell of a lot of people that show up for the primaries on the conservative side. There's probably around 150 max, 150,000 max that show up for that. So you might not realize that you are not affiliated with a party right now. And as we have gone through the data, I've noticed one glaringly obvious thing that we all know, which is that the unaffiliated party is the largest party in Connecticut through and through, with about 1 million plus people in the unaffiliated party. That dwarfs the Republican affiliations and the Democrat affiliations. So I'm bringing this up because I have never changed my registration status. But when I search unaffiliated, don't know how that happened. Don't know why that happened. I didn't do it. I don't know if it happened when I moved to Tolland because I was originally living and registered to vote in Vernon. I wasn't told that I would have to re-register as a Republican, but this is an issue that I found, and you might have the same problem and not even realize it. And you might think, well, that's not a big deal because I'm going to vote Republican anyway. Well, the truth of the matter is it is a big deal because as an unaffiliated person, according to the Secretary of State, I have been selected to receive correspondence from the Democrats as well as Republicans. Now, you all know that Democrats outspend Republicans probably at a pace of 3 or 4 to 1. So I get flooded with Democratic stuff in the mail, in my email, and through text messages and spam calls. I didn't understand why because I was a registered Republican. So chances are, if you're getting stuff from the Democrats, it's because you're unaffiliated. And if you are unaffiliated, that means that you're not seeing the Republican stuff. So you're not going to vote for a Republican if the only people you're seeing show up on your doorstep is the Democrat stuff. The only people that are texting you are the Democrats. Like, I got a text from Liz Warren's party, not her party, but her office, whatever, whoever texted on her behalf. And I have no idea why, because I have badmouthed Liz Warren since the day I found out she was trying to pass herself off as a Native American, even though we all knew she was white, similar to that woman that tried to present herself as black, even though that she was as whiter than me. Rachel Dolson, I believe is her name, or something along that lines. So I'm baffled at the fact that my registration was removed from being a GOP member. And I know that there's been an issue in towns like Torrington where they were filing people under the wrong registration affiliation when they signed up. So if you were going and you didn't want to be affiliated, they were probably going to put you as a Democrat. If you were trying to be listed as a Republican, they might have put you as a Democrat. Anything they can do. And what it does is it's from a psychological standpoint more than anything else, is it makes the Democrats feel like they're untouchable because they are outnumbering the Republicans. And the Republicans feel like, oh, we've got a losing battle because there's so many Democrats in the state. So that's why it's very important that we get the registration right for everybody. So I need every single person that's going to watch this video to go and check the status of their registration. All you have to do is go to Google and type in voter registration lookup Connecticut, and then it'll be the top website for the Secretary of State. So with that out of the way, I wanted to bring up some of the data that I've been working on. Sorry, this isn't as pretty as I would like it to be right now. A lot of it is raw data. An issue that I have come across with compiling this data is somebody was not very literate at the Secretary of State's office over the last 20 plus years. I don't know who did this. It's probably not the same person. But some of the towns are out of order alphabetically. Some of the towns are spelled wrong. Some of the information just isn't there. And the information that is there is not consistent from year to year. For instance, when I looked at the 1994, I color coded this because I thought every year was going to be exactly like this, where you have the districts with the towns in the districts, all the votes, etc., going all the way down to the 6th district. Because remember, Connecticut did have 6 districts up until, I believe, 2002. So this information, I was like, oh, this is phenomenal. And this is from the 90s. So this was just like, this is what they kept on record in the 90s for elections, which was amazing. So much information that we just don't have access to now because they are not tracking it. And that's an issue, because as we go deeper into the years, it's less and less information becomes available. And not only that, but the information has errors in it, making it very hard to parse the data from what they've published to getting it into the spreadsheet. So I've spent a lot of time matching up numbers from spreadsheet to spreadsheet just to make sure it's there. And it's taken a lot longer than I'd like to admit to make sure that the details are right. And I know that some people that have gone and looked at a lot of this information have said that, oh, stuff doesn't line up or, oh, it's never accurate. Well, I don't know what you're doing. All I know is what I'm doing. And I saw the errors and I found them, and I fixed them as I went, just to prevent any massive problems as I'm going through, because I created so many different formulas, Excel formulas, to get numbers to show certain percentages and changes in totals. So as we go from 1994 to 1998, it completely different, right? This looks, I know my picture or my camera's in the way, but it's completely different. And I can scroll down and there's nothing. This is it. There was no primary, so there's no data on the primary. But you can see the vast change from 1994 to 1998. They're no longer doing it by congressional district. Same in 2002. Again, no primary. Interestingly enough, and I wanted to show you, in 1994, the year that Rowland got elected, look at the people that he went against. He went against there were 5 parties involved, and 4 of them had 100,000+ votes each, which is insane when you think about it. And I looked at the registration for this this era, I should say, and there were always more Democrats in Connecticut than there were Republicans, even going back to the 90s. So my question is, why did a Republican win in 1994? And the Democrats can be like, oh, it's because there were so many parties involved. They took votes away from Curry. Well, I would buy that, except in 1998, there were less parties that got votes outside of the Republican and the Democrat, and Rowland absolutely obliterated Kennelly, as you can see, by almost 2-to-1 votes. Again, still more Democrats registered than Republicans. In 2002, Rowland again beat Curry. This time, nobody else was involved, and he beat him by a pretty substantial margin again. So I'm not buying it that those other parties took away votes from Curry or the Democrats. I think, if anything, it leveled the playing field, and it shows you that so many people got absorbed into the Democratic Party because of those other parties. And I think the issue was Republicans didn't really try to recruit them as those parties kind of went under, which was, it is what it is. I mean, we're a little bit past that. In 2006, Jody Rell took over for Rowland after Rowland got arrested for his bribes and went to federal prison. Jody Rell absolutely obliterated DeStefano with 710,000 to just under 400,000 votes. Again, we had more Democrats in the state at the time than we did Republicans. So from 1994 till 2010, we had a Republican as governor of Connecticut, despite having more liberals in the state. I don't know why, but that's just what it came down to. And what I think is funny is, look whose name pops up in the primary, and he actually he won the party convention, but he lost the primary vote, which is just, it's funny. And I don't think it would. I think if he had won that primary, he wouldn't have won against Rell, and he wouldn't have been governor after Rell retired in 2014, because he would have just been embarrassed and realized that he couldn't win. And anyway, he comes onto the ticket in 2010, and as you can see, he's on here twice. This was the first time that a candidate has appeared on the ballot twice. And if you look at the total votes between party, these are Democrat votes. He got 540,000, and he actually lost that vote to the Republicans. You can see, because Foley got 560,000 Republicans voting for him. Or I should say, based off of the party, 560,000 people voted Republican, only 540,000 people voted Democrat. There were still more Democrats in the state, but the only reason Malloy won was because he was on the ticket twice, so he absorbed every single vote from this other party, which let him win by a narrow margin. I believe he only won, let's see, what did he have? We'll call it 561 to 560. Sorry. I think he won by, that would be 66. He won by less than 10,000 votes. We'll I think that's the easiest way to say it. I can't do the math right now. I've been looking at numbers too long. So he barely won after losing the primary, the prior election, And the only reason he did win was because he got his name on the ticket twice. Now, I know that Foley didn't really care about that until 2014 when he did the same thing. And you can see, and this is why I'm bringing this up, you can see that Foley running as an independent, he got 22,000 votes, and Malloy with that working families bullshit got 24 or just under 25,000. So you can see it leveled that playing field by having both of them on there twice, where they stole those votes, which was a smart idea because it meant that he would only lose by a couple thousand. And then that's essentially what it was he got substantially less votes from the Democrats, but less votes on the Republican side as well by 60,000, which seems like a steep drop off to have 90,000 less people voting in that time period. And you can see you had 1.145 million to 1.09 million. That's my math right? Yeah, that's about 50 to 60,000 votes that are separating the two elections. But then, and this is the weird part, in 2018, we had 1.4 million votes launched. And this was during Trump's presidency. So I don't know if this was because so many Democrats were just fired up over Trump that they wanted to make sure that we had a Democrat in office. But I don't recall Stefanowski really being a MAGA person. He seemed pretty tame back then. But either way, it's just bizarre that they both got more votes than anybody since Jody Rell, because Jody Rell was the last person to get close to this, and when she had 710,000 people voting for her in the one election that she went through. So I found it interesting, and you can see here Stefanowski actually beat Lamont on that second ticket by a considerable amount. He beat him by 8,000 votes, and Lamont ended up, I think he got just like about 690,000 votes to just about 650,000 votes for Stefanowski. So it was a wider margin of victory than it had previously been. But the Republicans were still, it seemed like people were still voting Republican and wanted a Republican governor. And then just something happened where Malloy got elected that first go around. And I think it just kind of deflated Republicans in the state. And then you kind of saw some people leave because everybody knew Malloy wasn't going to be that great at his job. And he wasn't. He was absolutely fucking atrocious. And I don't think anybody wanted to listen to him do publicity and stutter through all of his words. I don't know, I stuttered as I said that, but that was the joke. Stammering Malloy, right? Daniel, like go by Daniel. Just change your name. Well, Daniel, what the hell does that even mean? Anyway, a little off topic. In 2022, Lamont gets more votes than Jody Rell got. So it was no longer a Republican that had the most votes, and he was on there 3 times. Stefanowski was only on there once. And Stefanowski got absolutely slaughtered. There was no primary this year. There was in 2018, however, and you can see that there were 5 Republicans that got onto the ticket because you needed 15% through your party to get on, and from the convention, but then they all got a substantial amount of votes. This was actually the most Republicans that had voted in a primary. And you can see this is what I was referring to. The Democrats, just there's always more of them that vote in the primaries than there are Republicans. You can't even see that. Let me just, my camera's locked, so I can't even move it. Yeah, so Stefanowski blamed the fact that there was a primary as to why he didn't win that election in 2018. But then there wasn't a primary, so there was no spending that he had to do in 2022. And he got slaughtered by Lamont. And I don't know why, because Lamont was not that great of a governor in after his first term. I don't know why he would have gotten so many votes in 2022, because Biden was in office at the time. So he figured if they wanted a Democrat because Trump was in office, then that's fine. But I think Obama being president brought in the first Democrat that we had seen since probably the 80s in office. So I'm a little confused as to how these switched. So I decided, let's look at population changes and let's look at party affiliation changes. So two very important things. As I was going through this, again, the raw information that the state gives you does not parse that well, because some of it's not in alphabetical order. And I think it's because once you get to like the West Brooks and the East Granbys and East Hartfords, there's an Eastford and an Easton, and they were trying to put those before the East spaces. So some of it is to be like Easton, then be East Granby, then it'd be Eastford, then it'd be East Hartford. So there was that confusion where you had to kind of like not cancel, but copy and paste individually for towns, which is just a pain in the ass if you're doing this. By the way, I don't recommend it. But so it took me a while to get that mapped out correctly. I also built in this recap for election results, just town by town. And this is just votes year over year right here in this first category. You don't really need to see it. And then it's the percentage change versus just the numerical number. Then it's the votes by party. I mean, I just have a ton of different data on here. The congressional districts. And this is also congressional district results by party. And it's only Democrat and Republican. I'm not including all the working families, yada, 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 because it really doesn't matter in the long scheme of things. The most votes are going to be for these two parties. And sure, those other votes are going to help. But as you saw historically, all it does is kind of cancel out the other party when you're running both as two ticket on the ballot. So if Stefanowski was on there twice and Lamont was on there twice, all those did was cancel each other out for the working class and the independents. And that just, it's going to be like that. So my logic was, I don't think people really care about those other parties because Lamont's going to get the working families bullshit. I don't know why. I don't know why a Republican hasn't been like, hey, can we not put our governor's name on here twice or our nominations on here twice for the gubernatorial race? Because I think it's a little ridiculous. And if you've ever seen a ballot, you know what I'm talking about, where that you've got the same name for this, that, whatever. Like even not just like for that, but like locally, you could have people on there for like Democrat and then working families. And I think that's bullshit because it's a pure advantage where you're seeing multiple names on there, but then you're seeing the same name appear multiple times. And you're like, oh, this person must be good. So uninformed voters think that because they're on there multiple times, then they must be the best person to vote for. And I know that sounds stupid, but people don't make politics their life, right? They're told that they're a Democrat or they're told that they're a Republican, and they just go with it. So for us, we need to make sure that if a Republican takes over, that they focus on getting that off the ballot. And that's going to come down to, if you can't do it through the governor's office, then we need to go around to every registrar and tell them that they need to cut the bullshit and start basically proactively protesting out in front of these registrar offices and saying enough with this party nonsense. Personally, I think we should reset the entire party system So, like me, everybody else goes unaffiliated, and then we all have to opt in for the party that we want, just because it's clearly already fucked up. If somebody like me loses my registration, and I say like me because my father actually ran for office in Connecticut before he passed away. He knew Roland. I knew Roland from my childhood. I had met him. I have grandparents getting cards from different presidents because of their connections. My grandfather used to go down to Washington, talk to senators about stuff involving his business. I've had people from the Smithsonian reach out to me to do research on my family. I have a pretty like old school family tied in this area, where it doesn't make sense that I would lose my registration status. Like, you don't want to fuck with certain people, and I don't want to say that I'm one of those people, but I will put you on blast. As a quiet millennial, I will say, listen, this doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna do this to somebody, do it to somebody else, because I'm not the person. Don't fucking test me, because I will blast this shit out and put everybody on notice, which is what I'm doing here. And I know this video is about 25 minutes right now, 26 minutes. Again, I was going to do a live stream on this, so there's a lot to go over, but I'm still going to do a live stream. I just wanted to go over a couple of these quick things just to kind of show you what we're going to be going over. And I wanted to give a full explanation of this so that if you are a candidate and you want this, or you would like a version of this more specific to you, let me know and I will get to working on it. I really don't want to do this by every town, every election in each town year by year. I was only doing it for the big ones, which is every 4 years, because you still have your congressional districts getting voted for. So like the Courtneys and the Rosas, they're getting voted for at the same time. So because you have those national people, and then occasionally you'll have senators. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that 2018, I think that was a senator's. It was either Murphy or Blumenthal might have been on the ticket. But I was only looking at the governor stuff initially. I can pull up the senator stuff, and that's probably what it was. But I don't know why anybody would want to vote for Blumenthal. The guy's old as shit. He made $100 million. Who knows how, right? Like, people say that our state isn't corrupt, but then you have the Republicans say that our state is very corrupt. And I'm not talking Republicans in the state, because obviously we know we live here. I'm talking Republicans nationally call our state corrupt. So there's something going on that we're not seeing. I know people have looked at the voter fraud shit and they've seen that there's like a 14% error range, which is just not good when you compare it to other states. Like, we are very high on that. And again, I'm not looking at voter fraud, but if voter fraud happens to find me, then I'm willing to expose it. And the last point I wanted to talk about was voter fraud found me. There's one town in particular that I need to address, and that is Mansfield. For those who don't know, Mansfield is where UConn is. So it's Storrs in Mansfield, Connecticut. Mansfield is a small town, but the population, I believe, is getting credited for the students that go to UConn, because otherwise it would make absolutely no sense to have a population as large as what Mansfield has. I live in Tolland. I'm right down the road from UConn. It's a 15-minute drive for me. And I'll tell you, there's absolutely nothing. And then boom, it's the university. So there's like a bunch of like, houses in the sticks, large farm areas, and then huge university, and then back to nothing. So there's not that many houses in Mansfield. There's not like a true downtown to Mansfield like there would be in larger cities, other than you're just on that main road going down like towards the Dairy Barn, and then everything else is right there on that main boulevard, where E.O. Smith and all that stuff is. So why I'm bringing this up is, let's go to the population estimates. This data, by the way, is all sourced from the census. The census is every 10 years. So what they do is they would put a 2000. I only pulled the numbers for the election years, but it's based off of 2000, and then they run their projections, which they use stats. They're running a Monte Carlo simulation, and then but they're also looking at historical stuff. So it's very easy to predict that and forecast population changes when it comes down to it. And they've actually shown 2020 census versus projected 2020 numbers. Like they were pretty much spot on. So I just want to make it clear that that's what these are based off of. That's why they are called estimations and not proclamations. Excuse me. So I'm going to go down to Mansfield. I've highlighted this. So this would be there you go. This would be the 1998 population. And why I think they're including UConn students is the university has gotten a lot bigger as the years have gone on. So you can see, I should probably zoom in just to make this a little bit easier for you to read. This was 1998, and then 2002. It's again, I think it's more UConn students are going there. The university is growing. Oh look, it jumps up to 20, almost 25,000. That's a pretty big leap from this to this to this. Then it's 26, almost 27. Then it's loses some. Then it loses some or it stays flat. And then it jumps 6,000. And then it decreases in this is 2024. So they're projecting it decreased 4,000 between these 2 years. But it was a steady 4-year look prior to these 2 years right here. In this column, this is the estimated population per town year over year change. So you can see what the exact additions are. So from 1998 to 2002, they gained 2,500, then 3,000, then 2,000, then they lost 700, then they lost 160, and then they gain 6,000, and then they lose 4,000. These are the percentages, just so you are aware. You can see positive, positive, negative, negative, huge positive, huge negative. So that's a little weird, right? That's suspicious. That's weird. Let's go to party affiliation for those years in Mansfield, shall we? If I was smart, I would have probably highlighted this as well. These are Republicans. I'm not looking at the inactives right now. I'm just looking at the total, because the total includes the inactives. I'm only looking at the Republican, the Democrat, the unaffiliated, and the total active. Because I'm comparing this to the total active. So total active voters is 7,654 as of 2002. We want to start with, well, actually, when did this start? 98. So 2002 would have been this right here. So they had 21,000 people in 2002, and they had 76 registered voters total, and it was about 1,200 Republican, 4,000 unaffiliated, or 3,200 unaffiliated. These are the inactive, so this is the total. And then let's see, these would be the Democrats. So this town doesn't make sense to be a Democrat held town unless there's a lot of college students that are registered to vote there, because it's next to like all the towns around it are conservative, and you can see it in the numbers. So it's like it's this weird blue spot in a sea of red in the middle of fucking nowhere, and the only thing that is consistent about it is that there's a university there, but the population isn't consistent. The amount of votes coming out of there isn't consistent. the amount of registered voters in there is very inconsistent, and that's the whole point of why I'm showing you this. And this is just one town. I haven't looked that great into all the other towns in great detail, I should say. But most of them seem to be within a certain range of normalcy. Because what I did was I actually took a look, and I had I set a rule in Excel to give me the percent breakdown. And this was another weird thing that I found that I'm going to discuss right after this. But if we go down to Mansfield, look at this increase. It was a 47%, and this is weird too. It was a 32% increase from 2002 to 2006. Then it was an increase of 20% from 06 to 10. Then it decreased, and then it increased 48% in registered voters. In Democrat registered voters. And then the total registration changes is this one right here. Look at this. It lost 6,800 registered voters. Basically by the exact amount, like almost by the exact amount that the population changed. And this was in 2022. So, and this was the year that we were talking about, where look, they gained a substantial amount from 2014 to 2018. They gained 3,100 registered voters. And I have this right here to show you. These are population without Democrat and Republican voters, but I wanted to show you the registered voters by year per town. This is overall. Look at this. It's just under 12,000. Then it reduces to just under 11,500. Then it jumps by 3,000 to 14,000. And then it drops 6,000 in 2022. I don't know what is going on with Mansfield. I'd love to say it's because of these college students, but that's a substantial drop, not necessarily just from the fact that it's going from 14 to 8, but it's even that much lower than it would be for 2014 and 2010, right? Where you had 11. It's just this is an anomaly, right? That's what I'm looking for, and that's what you're going to want to look for if you're going in depth with this stuff, is these anomalies. That's, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I don't need to know a bunch about stats to look at that and be like, why is that number so much higher than the other number? And I'm doing this because I want you to be able to cross-reference the population to the registered voters, to the parties, so you can see what's going on in these towns, so that as a politician, as a candidate, you can be like, I need to go to this town and I need to get X, Y, and Z for votes. And if I do that to enough of these towns that are willing to vote for me, then I have a real shot of winning my election. Because as you can see, Republicans can win in Connecticut. You just have to be very strategic about it. So you're going to want to go to the towns where you know that historically they have voted more right, even though they might be listed as a more left-leaning town. So Mansfield, it just doesn't pass the sniff test for me, quite honestly. And you saw a sea of purple right there. 2014. I don't understand why this is like this. It is nearly across the board from 2010 to 2014 that the Democrats lost registered Democrats by a substantial margin. In one town, Danbury, they increased. In Eastford, which is a small population, look, they started with 243, they increased. In Hamden, in Hartford, barely in Hartford, barely in Hamden. Those are under 1%. Lyme, New Fairfield, New Haven, New London. Um, and I'd love to say that, oh, it's because they moved, but this isn't. A, there's no way that the gains in North Stonington and Newtown and New Haven and New London outweigh all the negativity that you see on here for what they lost. Um, it was a total. I mean, I don't know what this is based off. Let's see. I believe that's based off of, yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's based off of that to that. Okay, yeah. So it's based off of it's. So they lost 5% total. Negative 5.12% is what the Democrats lost for registered Democrats in Connecticut in 2014. What's that all about? And hey, I don't care because I'm a Republican, but that kind of shows me that again, that's if you're looking at a scatter plot, this is not going to show on a scatter plot to show outliers. This is like a weird, again, the word anomaly. I don't understand it. I really do not understand what the hell happened between 2010 and 2014 where virtually every single town and city lost Democrat registered voters. And it's not like I didn't do the percent change for Republicans yet, but it's not like the Republicans gained a whole hell of a lot because even they lost some, right? Obviously, you see some gains. These aren't percentages; these are just actual number of changes. So, like, 171 more than the prior year, 7 more than the prior year. So 1492 plus 7, and then from the 7 they added another 171. That's how this looks at, and then I'm going to do the percentage like I did for the Democrats. But the Republicans lost people too, and they only gained 11,834 registered voters in 2014. And the Democrats, 2014, I'll show you, and I can do this quickly. This is, so this would be 71, 60. I don't know why I did it like that, but they lost 38,000 registered Democrats in 2014, and the Republicans only gained 11,000. I mean, that's a difference of 30,000 between the two changes. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think Mansfield was probably Mansfield might not have been a big one for that year, but it definitely would have been for 2000s. Yeah, 2022 was a pretty big year. um, so um, I don't get it. Something about 2014. And then you look at all these increases in 2018. Again, this is a, if we're looking at this objectively and we're saying that voter fraud isn't a thing, ignore this first green one. I'm going to change that back. If we're looking at this non-objectively, there is too much green. Green means positive, purple means negative in this case because it's easier to see. For these 3 election cycles, you have more outliers in 2006 and 2022 than you do in 2010, 2014, and 2018. So you had substantial gains in 2010 from 2006, and then you had substantial losses from 2010 to 2014. Then you had substantial gains again from 2014 to 2018. I I don't know what happened there. I I can't explain that. I don't know how I can figure out how to explain that. Um, I'd have to start looking through historical documents to see what exactly happened in those years, which is why this isn't something that one person can do. This is going to take a team of people to be researching this. And again, I'm not necessarily calling this voter fraud. I'm saying that this leans towards what we would perceive as voter fraud, but there could be other issues at stake. And I know it's easier just to say, oh, it's voter fraud because that's a talking point. Talking points aren't going to get Republicans elected. What we need is actual data and actual proof, actual evidence, so that we can circumvent that shit and not have to blame voter fraud and do everything we can to take away the voter fraud. And there's a great lesson that athletes take, which is you never leave a game up to the refs, okay? When it comes to these elections, you cannot leave the election up to the ref. We have to come out in overwhelming numbers where there's no possible way for us to think that it's voter fraud, right? We need to win by such a large margin that even if they did voter fraud, it's not going to have an impact. Because if it does have an impact, then it's going to be clear voter fraud because there'd be way too many people voting compared to who's registered. And you can look at the statistics and you can pinpoint percentages of people in towns, and you can look at every town's percentage of who actually votes out of the registered voters for party, for overall, all of that. And I'm going to probably do that. Otherwise, you can just do that math yourself. But you can compare, okay, I have 1,000 people in this town that are Republicans. 400 showed up and voted for a Republican. So that's 40%. Okay. Then you look at another town and it could be like 55%, right? And so on and so forth. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at each town's trend to see, is it a consistent within a certain margin of error? Like it could be like 3 to 5%. Is it basically 40 to 45% year over year for this town that had that 40%? Or is it like 40% and then something completely different? Obviously 2018 is going to be the outlier. We know that because the 300,000 people that had probably never voted before in their life decided to show up to vote. I just find it interesting that we had that many voters in 2018 after this many people left the party in 2014. And again, when you look at the Republicans, this makes a lot more sense visually because there's more purple and green. It's more balanced. This, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I would have to guess that this could have been when my voter registration was flipped. And I say that because in 2014, I had moved out of Vernon, and I was living in New Britain at the time, and I had it officially listed as New Britain. So for all I know, people graduated college and moved, but that's a lot of people to be moving and having their registration canceled if that's even what triggers that. So that's something that we're going to need to get information on, and we're going to need to do some research. It's going to take more than just me, but as we start sifting through this data and we start seeing stuff like this, it's eye-opening, and it makes you wonder what the hell is even going on. Obviously, like I said, it's easy to say voter fraud. Like, I don't know there's a test that we can do to see if it's voter fraud. Obviously, like when you're looking at this many data, there's, again, we're looking at for outliers, and if there's too many outliers, then there's an issue. These 3 cycles, far too many outliers. We got to rein that in. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow, I'm going to do a live stream. I'm going to do some live data grabs, show you guys the methodology that I use so that you can incorporate it in your own research. If you are working with a candidate or for a candidate and you would like me to do some stuff for you, feel free to reach out. My accreditations are, not only did I start a business and run it before I sold it for 10 years, I'm also a current MBA student, and I'm a triple concentration. One of them is in strategy, which is why I'm so good at looking at data. Another concentration of mine is financial decision making, which is huge because it allows me to look at follow the money. And then my third concentration is artificial intelligence and technology management. And what it allows me to do is use AI efficiently to make sure that all the data is right, all the decision making is right. Okay, so I have a high GPA. I have plenty of experience running a business successfully and selling it. I am a weapon as long as I have the availability. Obviously, it's tough for me to say, hey, I'm going to do all this for free. So if you need it more customized, I'm not going to charge you a hell of a lot. It's really just going to be based off of how long it takes me to compile it. And unfortunately, because the state secretary's office didn't do that great of a job of getting stuff alphabetically, it's going to take a little bit of time. So again, I don't want to overcharge you and be like, oh, it's going to be $5,000. I think that's ridiculous. I'm willing to negotiate. I know that it's early on in the process for a lot of people, but I think it's important that you have data because you're going to want to know what towns to go to get those extra votes to outweigh the cities. Especially if you're a congressional person like Chris Lancia, you want to get as many votes as you can outside of New Haven, right? So you're going to want to know what towns to go to where you can make up the votes that you're going to lose in New Haven, but you're still going to want to go to New Haven, right? But you're also going to want to know which areas of New Haven to go to, right? So that's where a lot of this stuff is going to come in handy. It's going to let you target specific areas and basically think of it like as a national election where Trump is only going to states that are swing states, right? That's what we're going to do in Connecticut. That's what we have to do in Connecticut. That's not what we've been doing because Ben Proda hasn't really been active about that. He hasn't really helped anybody with campaigning. And again, that's because I think he only really cares about the fact that he's the chairperson. He just picked a fight with Jason Douglas. He said something that was, oh, don't record me. I'm trying to have a private conversation when you're in a public space. It doesn't matter if it's on private property. It is a public forum. You don't get to have a private conversation. You are an attorney. You should know that. But it just shows you how out of touch Proto is and how out of touch a lot of the people in the GOP are. It's why I call the GOP the RTC, because the RTCs are the local ones. The local ones need to start controlling the overall GOP. So when I refer to the GOP, it's always going to be negative. When I refer to the RTC, know that it is really what I think the GOP should be. So with that, I will put my I'll put my email in the notes of this. I'm going to upload this on X, and then I believe the Connecticut MAGA account is also going to upload this for me. So you can feel free to email me or DM me, whatever, and get me in contact with whoever you need to get me in contact with, and I'll see what I can do to help them out, because I truly believe that we need to take this data approach, this sabermetrics approach to these elections, because if we can do it on a national level, if we can get Trump elected on a national level, if we can get people to swing in other states, then we can start to do it here. And that guy Scott, I want to say Presley, maybe I think his name is Presley. He did a lot of this stuff. He found out where people were going, where Republicans were that weren't registered, like gun shows and stuff like that. So he got them registered that way, which is a great technique. But outside of that, this is going to be let's hit the ground running. Let's go to this town, this town, this town, and this town, and let's make sure that we're taking care of the people here and we're getting our talking points. So with that being said, I will do a live stream tomorrow. If you're interested in watching, I will also link that. It's not going to be on Rumble or YouTube. It's going to be on Twitch. But you can ask me questions in there. It's free. I don't have ads or anything like that. So I think Rumble, you get hit with ads, even if it's not like a paid account. On Twitch, I don't really have to worry about that. So people can talk in the chat. I can see their messages on my end, and then we can look live at what people want to know. So with that, I will leave it here. God bless America. God bless Connecticut.